Her mate rejected her in public for her sister, but the Lycan king claimed her in front of them all. Every wolf was born with a thread of destiny tied to their soul, invisible but strong. When the moon rose full and silver, that thread would pull two hearts together. Some bonds came with joy, some came with power, some came with sorrow, but all were meant to be honored. That was what Alira had been taught since childhood. She stood in the center of the stone circle, her hands folded tightly before her, trying to steady her breath. The cold night air brushed her skin, but it was not the cold that made her tremble. It was the waiting. Tonight was the claiming ceremony. Tonight, her mate would stand before the entire pack and accept her. Around her, the great wolves of the Northwatch pack gathered in silence. Warriors lined the outer ring, their armor catching the moonlight. Elders stood closer, their faces carved with age and judgment. Above them all, the full moon hung heavy and bright, watching. Alira lifted her eyes. Across the circle stood Kale, her mate. She had known it since the bond awakened years ago. She had felt it in her chest every time he came near. The quiet pull, the ache, the sense of something unfinished. Kale was tall and strong, born of a respected bloodline. He carried himself with confidence as if the future had always belonged to him. He did not look at her. Alira swallowed. She had never been the one people noticed first. That honor belonged to her younger sister, Lyra. Lyra had beauty that turned heads and a voice that carried across rooms. She smiled easily, laughed often, and knew how to make herself seen. Alira had learned to stand quietly beside her. Still, Alira had believed the bond would be enough. Fate, after all, did not care for pride or beauty. It chose what was true. The elder stepped forward, striking the stone staff against the ground. The sound echoed through the circle. "By moon and blood," the elder said, "the bond shall be honored." "Step forward, Kale of Northwatch." Kale moved. His boots touched the stone with heavy steps. Alira's heart began to race. This was it. After years of silence, after all the stolen glances and unspoken distance, this was the moment everything would change. Kale stopped in front of her. For one breath, the world seemed to hold still. Then he turned away. A ripple moved through the crowd. Whispers followed like wind through dead leaves. Alira froze. Kale walked past her, straight to Lyra. Her sister's eyes widened in surprise, then softened into something like understanding. Kale reached for Lyra's hand and lifted it before the pack. "I reject the bond," Kale said clearly. "Alira is not the mate I choose." The words struck Alira harder than any blade. Gasps broke the silence. The elders stiffened. The elder raised the staff again, but Kale did not stop. "I claim Lyra," he continued, "not by fate but by choice." Alira felt the bond snap. It was not a sound but a feeling, sharp, burning, and deep. Her chest tightened as if something inside her had torn. She swayed, her knees weak, but she did not fall. The moonlight dimmed. Rejection was rare. Public rejection was almost unheard of. It was said such acts angered the old magic. That bonds broken in pride left scars on the soul. Lyra did not look at Alira. She lowered her gaze, her fingers curling around Kale's. Whether she felt guilt or victory, Alira could not tell. The elder's voice trembled with anger. "You break ancient law." "I accept the cost," Kale said. Alira could barely hear them anymore. Her ears rang. Her heart felt hollow, as if something vital had been ripped away and left nothing behind. She turned and walked out of the circle. No one stopped her. The pack watched in silence as she passed between them, her head held high though her vision blurred. She would not give them tears. She would not give them weakness. But with every step, the bond's echo burned deeper. She reached the edge of the clearing when the air shifted. The ground beneath her feet trembled. A low sound rolled through the forest, not thunder, not wind, but something alive. The warriors stiffened. Several reached for their weapons. The elders stepped back. The moonlight twisted, bending toward the shadows beyond the trees. Alira turned slowly. The forest parted. From the darkness stepped a figure taller than any wolf she had ever seen. His presence pressed down on the clearing like a heavy storm. His long coat moved as if touched by unseen wind, dark as midnight stone. Silver markings traced his armor, old symbols that spoke of forgotten kings. His eyes glowed pale gold. A Lycan, not just any Lycan. The Lycan king. Stories of him were told in whispers. A ruler beyond the packs. A king bound to an ancient curse. It was said no mate survived at his side. That death followed him like a shadow. He had not been seen in generations. Every knee dropped to the ground. Every voice fell silent. Illyra stood frozen, caught between fear and disbelief. The Lycan king's gaze moved across the gathering, cold and sharp, then stopped on her. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition. He walked forward. Each step echoed through the clearing. When he reached the center of the stone circle, he stopped and looked at Kale, then at Lyra. "Fate has been challenged," the Lycan king said. His voice was deep, carrying power older than the realm itself, and the old magic has answered. He turned fully toward Illyra. She felt his eyes on her like a weight, but also like warmth. The ache in her chest stirred, changing shape, becoming something unfamiliar. "You were rejected," he said, not as a question. Illyra lifted her chin. "Yes." The Lycan king studied her for a long moment. The moonlight brightened again, spilling silver across the stones. Then he spoke words that shattered the night. "I claim her." Gasps rang out. The elders shouted. Warriors stepped forward, confused and afraid. "She is mine," the Lycan king continued, his voice calm and absolute. "By right older than your laws, by power you cannot deny." Kale stared in disbelief. "You cannot." The Lycan king's gaze flicked to him. Kale fell silent. Illyra's heart pounded. "I do not understand," she said quietly. The Lycan king looked back at her. His expression softened just slightly. "You will," he said, "if you choose to walk beside me." The forest held its breath. Illyra stood between the past that had broken her and a future that terrified her. The bond she had trusted lay in ruins, but something new stirred where the pain had been. Something powerful, something dangerous. She took one step forward. And the moon burned brighter than it had in 100 years. Illyra's feet moved cautiously over the cold stones of the Lycan king's citadel. Every step echoed against walls taller than any trees she had ever seen. She could hear nothing but her own heartbeat and the faint whisper of wind that slipped through cracks in the obsidian towers. The air felt heavy here, thick with power and silence. The moonlight barely reached the inner courtyard, painting the black stones in silver patterns that shifted with the shadows. She tried to keep her thoughts steady. She told herself she was not afraid, but she could not stop the tremor that ran through her hands. A figure emerged from the darkness, the Lycan king, Aurelian. He did not speak at first. He watched her with those golden eyes that seemed to pierce her very soul. His presence was immense, impossible to ignore. She could feel the ancient magic that lingered around him. It pressed against her, not violently but insistently, as if the air itself obeyed his will. "You walk as if the earth is afraid of you," he said finally, his voice low, deep and smooth, yet carrying a weight she could feel in her chest. Illyra lifted her chin. "I am not afraid," she said, though her voice sounded small to her own ears. "Not yet," he replied, a faint smile touching his lips. They walked together through the citadel, and the silence between them was not empty. She could feel it filling with something she did not yet understand. Power, possibility, danger, and something else, something that made her pulse quicken, attention. For the first time, someone truly saw her. Not her beauty, not her sister's shadow beside her, but her. "Why did you claim me?" she asked, finally breaking the silence. Aurelian's gaze met hers. "Because you were rejected," he said simply. "And rejection can awaken truths the world hides. You are not like the others. Your strength does not lie in pride or beauty. It lies in survival, in heart." Illyra's lips parted. "You speak as if my heart belongs to you already." "It does not," he said, "but it could, if you allow it." She looked down, unsure if she wanted that. Could she trust a king whose power was said to bring ruin to all who dared approach him? The stories were true. She had heard whispers of his curse, of the countless who had been claimed, only to disappear in darkness, of mates who had vanished, leaving only sorrow and a throne that no one dared challenge. "Why me?" she asked softly. "Because fate was tested and it chose you," he said. "You have endured what most could not. You were abandoned and still you stand. That is not weakness. That is fire, fire." The word struck her like a spark against dry wood. She felt warmth stirred deep in her chest, in a place she had thought empty after Kale's rejection. She had believed her life had been decided for her, a life in shadows while her sister shined. But here, in this place, the fire was awakening. They entered a large hall. The ceiling stretched higher than the tallest pines, and columns of black stone carved with ancient runes lined the walls. Shadows danced across the floor, moving as if alive. Aurelian gestured for her to sit, and she obeyed, though every instinct told her to flee. "You will be tested," he said, pacing slowly in front of her. "The curse I carry is old and cruel. Those who love me often suffer. Those who are claimed without understanding often perish. But I do not believe you will. You are different." "I do not want to die," Elira said quietly, though the words were more than truth. They were a confession of all she had feared for years. Aurelian stopped pacing and knelt before her. The motion was unexpected. The golden eyes softened. "You will not die, not if you choose wisely, not if you trust the fire within you." Elira stared at him. The words felt heavy with meaning she did not yet understand. Was he speaking of love or power? Or something older than the moon itself? Before she could answer, a sound echoed from the hall's entrance. A guard rushed in, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty," he said, "a group approaches the citadel. They are led by Kale of Northwatch. They demand to speak to the one you have claimed." Elira froze. Kale, her former mate, the one who had rejected her so publicly. Aurelian rose smoothly, his presence filling the room. "Let them come," he said calmly. "It is time they see what happens when rejection awakens more than pride." The doors opened. Kale entered with a small group of Northwatch warriors. His eyes found hers immediately. For the first time, there was something in his expression she had never seen before: doubt, unease, fear. "You cannot take her," Kale said, his voice strained. "She belongs to me by what?" Aurelian interrupted, stepping forward. His presence alone made Kale step back. "By law, by pride, by choice." His eyes locked onto Kale's, golden and unyielding. "She is here by the power that far exceeds any law you claim. She is here because she endured. She survived, and she will walk forward with me if she wishes." Elira felt a sudden strength rise within her. The fear that had followed her for years, the ache of being unnoticed and rejected, burned away in fire. She stood tall. "I will walk forward," she said, her voice firm, stronger than she expected. "But not because of law or fear or pity. I choose to walk forward with him." A silence fell over the room. Kale's face paled. The warriors glanced nervously at one another. The stories were true. The Lycan king's claim was more than law. It was power older than the pack itself. Kale stepped back, defeated. You cannot." "I choose," Elira said, her gaze unwavering, "and the choice is mine alone." Aurelian's lips curved slightly. "Good," he said. "The first choice is always the hardest. Now the second will test your heart." Before she could question him, he raised a hand and the floor beneath them shimmered. Ancient runes glowed along the stone, pulsing with silver light. A cold wind swept the hall. Elira felt it touch her skin, whispering secrets she did not yet understand. "The curse awakens," Aurelian said. "Those who have been rejected bring change to it. You carry its fire now. It will test us both." Elira's pulse quickened. "Test us?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "The old magic judges all who enter it. Your past, your pain, your rejection, it has shaped you. The curse will see if your heart can endure, and if it does, it will not only bind you to me, it will change the fate of all who watch." Her chest tightened. The weight of destiny pressed upon her. She thought of Kale, of Lyra, of the pack that had once ignored her. She thought of all the times she had been overlooked, forgotten, and humiliated. And now she was here, standing before a king, facing a curse older than any living wolf and holding the power of choice in her hands. I am ready, she said, her voice trembling slightly but her heart fierce. Aurelian nodded. Then the first trial begins. He led her to a chamber deep beneath the citadel. The walls here were carved from black stone, smooth and cold. Symbols of ancient power glowed faintly, and the air hummed with unseen energy. A mirror of obsidian stood in the center of the room, reflecting not only her image, but the shadows behind her, the flicker of her past, and the ache of every rejection she had endured. "Look," Aurelian said softly, "see what you have carried all these years." Elira gazed into the mirror. At first she saw herself, small and fragile, trembling before Kale. But slowly the reflection shifted. She saw every moment she had been ignored, every whispered insult, every stolen glance at her sister's shadowed triumphs. She saw the hurt, the longing, the anger buried deep in her chest. And then beneath all of it she saw a spark, a flame that refused to die. "This is who you are," Aurelian said. "Not the rejected girl, not the one who stood in silence. You are the fire that remains after all else is burned away. That is why I chose you." Elira's chest swelled. She felt the ache of years melt into something new, strength, power, and a strange, dangerous hope. The mirror pulsed. A low hum filled the chamber. Shadows twisted and moved, forming shapes that whispered her name. She felt fear rise, but she did not step back. She stepped closer. The mirror cracked. Light spilled from it, silver and blinding. And through the glow she saw the shape of the Lycan king standing beside her, not as a ruler, not as a threat, but as an equal. "You are ready," he said. Elira swallowed. "Ready for what?" Aurelian's eyes held hers. "To see what the bond truly means. To see the fire of your heart. To see if fate can be rewritten." Her heart thundered in her chest. The weight of destiny pressed on her. The fire of rejection burned in her veins, and the pull of the Lycan king's presence filled the room. For the first time, Elira did not feel small. She did not feel overlooked. She did not feel rejected. She felt powerful, and she felt alive. The shadows in the chamber moved like living things, twisting and stretching across the black stone walls. Elira could feel them whispering, not in words but in feelings, memories, regrets, fears. Every moment of rejection she had endured pressed against her chest like a weight, reminding her of the girl she once was, small, overlooked, and forgotten. Aurelian stood beside her, silent and steady, his golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He did not speak. He did not touch her. He merely let her face the shadows alone. "They are not real," he said finally, as if reading her mind. "But they test what is real inside you." Elira swallowed hard. I don't know if I can," she whispered. "You can," he said firmly. "You already have. Every moment you survived rejection, you built strength. That strength will guide you now." The shadows shifted, forming shapes of those who had hurt her the most, or whom she believed had. Kale's face appeared first, his smile confident, cruel. Her chest tightened as if the old wound had been reopened. She had imagined this moment countless times, wondering what it would feel like to confront him. Now the image felt alive, threatening. Kale's eyes met hers in the shadows. "You cannot leave me behind," he said, voice echoing and warped by the magic of the chamber. "You belong to me, you always did." Elira's knees trembled. Anger, fear, and hurt surged at once. The old longing she had carried for him, the hope that he might recognize her worth, clashed violently with the pain of his rejection. She shook her head, trying to dispel the illusions. "They are only shadows," Aurelian said quietly, his hand brushing hers. The touch was light, but it grounded her. "Only you can give them power. Only you can make them real, or let them fade." She took a deep breath, remembering every moment she had been overlooked, every tear shed in silence, every dream stolen by her sister's light. She clenched her fists. "They are not me," she whispered. "I am not them. I am me." The shadows wavered, twisted, and then slowly began to dissolve. The images of Kale, of her sister, of every whispering voice vanished into silver mist. The chamber fell silent. Alira felt the first real warmth in hours, a sense of triumph and power. She looked at Aurelian. His face held pride, but also something deeper, caution. "This was only the first trial," he said. "The fire of your heart has been tested against your past. The next trial will test your future." Alira nodded, though her stomach twisted. She had survived the past. She could face the future, could she? Aurelian led her through twisting hallways deep within the citadel, each step echoing against stone older than time. Finally, they reached a balcony that overlooked the land of the moonbound realm. The valley below stretched endlessly, forests and rivers bathed in silver moonlight. The wind swept past them, carrying scents of pine and snow. "Look," Aurelian said, his hand sweeping toward the horizon. "Everything you thought you knew about life, love, and power is about to change. The bonds of fate are not always what they seem. Sometimes they hide truths older than the moon." Alira's heart pounded. She had seen her destiny collapse before Kale's rejection. She had been humiliated, overlooked, and left in the shadow of her sister. And now the Lycan king, a being of legend and fear, had chosen her. I don't understand," she said softly. "Why me? Why now?" "Because you were ready," he said. "Because rejection has prepared you for something far greater than approval. You are not bound by what others see. You are bound by what you survive. That is why I claimed you." Alira's lips trembled. Her past had been heavy, full of shame and silence. But now something lifted, a spark, a flame, a dangerous hope. Before she could speak further, the wind shifted again. From the valley below, a group approached. They rode swiftly, black shadows against silver light. Alira squinted. Northwatch warriors, and at their center, Kale. He had not given up. Her chest tightened. She thought she had felt anger before, but this was sharper. He was here to take her back, or to stop her from walking the path she had chosen. Aurelian did not flinch. He simply stepped forward, tall and unwavering. "Let them come," he said. "It is time the past meets the future." The Northwatch warriors reached the citadel. Kale dismounted, his face pale and tense. When he saw her standing beside the Lycan king, his confident expression faltered. You cannot be here," he said, voice tight. "She belongs to me." "She never belonged to you," Alira said, her voice rising like steel. "You rejected me. You chose her instead of me. I am not the one who lost. You are." Kale opened his mouth to argue, but Aurelian's presence silenced him. The air around the Lycan king shimmered, and the valley seemed to hold its breath. Even the warriors shifted nervously, sensing power older than their packs. "You will speak no lies here," Aurelian said, his golden eyes fixed on Kale. "She walks forward with her own choice, and no one can claim her but her." Alira's heart raced. She realized that Kale's power over her had always been an illusion. His rejection, painful as it was, had freed her. And now, beside the Lycan king, she could feel something new, strength, authority, her own fire. Kale's face twisted in frustration. "This is not over," he said. "You will regret this." Alira lifted her chin. "I doubt it." Aurelian's gaze softened. "Do you see?" he said. "The fire within you is stronger than any rejection. That is why you are here. That is why the curse watches you. That is why you have been chosen." Alira's chest ached. Her heart was still raw, still carrying old pain, but it was no longer weakness. It was power, and with it came clarity. "You are ready for the final trial," Aurelian said. "But it will not be easy. The bond that ties us is not just choice or magic. It is understanding, trust, and above all, courage." "What is the trial?" she asked. "You will see," he said, a shadow passing over his face. "It begins with what you fear most, and ends with a choice that will burn." Alira shivered. Fear coiled in her stomach, but she did not step back, not now. She had endured rejection. She had faced shadows of the past. She had survived the weight of being overlooked. "I am ready," she said. Aurelian nodded. "Then the trial begins." He led her into a circular chamber, larger than any room she had ever entered. The walls glowed faintly with silver runes, etched with symbols she could not recognize. In the center, a pool of black water shimmered like liquid night. "The mirror of fate," Aurelian said. "It shows not what is, but what could be. You must face it alone." Alira approached the edge of the pool. Her reflection shimmered and then changed. She saw herself standing in the stone circle of her pack, but this time Kale reached for her, not rejecting her. He smiled. He claimed her. Her stomach twisted. The vision was perfect. Warmth, acceptance, love, all the things she had wanted for years. But deep in her chest something stirred. A voice, faint but insistent: "This is not yours. This is a lie. Do you take it, or do you take what is real?" Alira's hands clenched into fists. The reflection shifted again. This time she saw herself standing beside Aurelian, not in fear, not in shame, but in strength. The silver light of the runes wrapped around them. She felt power, safety, and something she had never allowed herself to feel: belonging. She stepped back from the water. Her choice was clear. "I choose this," she whispered, looking up at Aurelian. The pool rippled violently. The runes glowed brighter and the chamber shook. Shadows lifted and fell around them as if the world itself were testing her decision. Aurelian reached out and their hands met. The moment their skin touched, Alira felt a surge of energy unlike anything she had known. It was warm and powerful, binding and freeing all at once. "You have made the choice," Aurelian said, his voice steady but full of awe. "And in doing so, you have awakened the full fire within you. The curse will not harm you, not now." Alira's chest heaved. She felt tears threaten, but she did not allow them. She had survived. She had chosen. She had faced rejection, shadows, and fear, and emerged stronger. But even as the chamber calmed, even as the glow of the runes dimmed, she felt a presence behind her. Something older than the citadel, older than the moon. Watching, waiting. And she knew the trial was far from over. The wind swept across the citadel, carrying the scent of pine and frost. Below, the valley lay quiet under silver moonlight, but a storm of destiny gathered over the moonbound realm. The final trial had begun, though Alira could not yet see it in full. She only felt it deep in her chest, a weight of fate, older than the hills and rivers, pressing her forward. The shadow she had sensed in the chamber hours ago was no longer distant. It moved closer, dark and cold, whispering doubts she had thought buried. "You are not enough. You will fail. The fire will burn you instead of others." Alira shivered. Fear rose like a tide, but she stood firm. She had survived rejection. She had faced illusions and shadows. She had chosen her path, and now she would face the last test. Aurelian's golden eyes held hers, steady and unwavering. "The final trial is not outside you," he said. "It is within. Every fear, every regret, every desire. You must face them and decide who you will become." Alira nodded, taking a deep breath. She felt the power within her pulse, the fire Aurelian had spoken of. It was not just strength, it was choice. And for the first time she realized, choice was more powerful than fate itself. The chamber around them began to shift. The walls of black stone melted into mist, and the floor beneath her feet became a silver river, flowing with light. The runes etched into the stones glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. "You must step forward," Aurelian said, his voice echoing like the wind. "Or be lost to the shadows forever." Alira's heart pounded. She thought of Kale, her former mate who had rejected her so publicly. She thought of Lyra, her sister, whose smile had always overshadowed her own. She thought of every whispered insult, every tear, every moment she had believed she was invisible. And then she looked at Aurelian, the Lycan king, who had chosen her when no one else had. His gaze was calm, strong, and unwavering. It did not demand her obedience. It did not demand her love. It simply asked her to see herself as he did, as someone worthy, someone powerful, someone alive. Elira took a step forward onto the silver river. The shadows whispered, their voices twisting and bending. "You are not ready. You will fail." But she did not stop. She thought of her past, and instead of shrinking from it, she embraced it. The rejection, the pain, the fear, all of it flowed into her like water into a river. She felt it burn away, leaving only clarity, only strength. The silver river pulsed beneath her feet, and the shadow loomed before her, solidifying into a shape that was both familiar and terrifying. The form of every choice she had never made, every fear she had ever held. It reached for her cold and sharp, trying to pull her into darkness. Elira stood taller. "I am not afraid," she said, her voice strong, echoing through the chamber. "I am not your prisoner, I am myself, and I choose my own path." The shadow faltered, then dissolved into silver mist, leaving only the glow of the runes and the soft light of the river. Elira exhaled, her chest burning, her legs trembling, but she did not fall. She had faced the trial. She had survived the fire. Aurelian stepped forward and took her hand. The moment their fingers touched, energy surged through her, warm and bright, filling every corner of her being. The bond between them was no longer just magic or choice. It was understanding, respect, and trust. It was something older than rejection or fear. It was connection. "You have done it," Aurelian said softly. "You have faced the trial, and in doing so you have not only survived, you have changed fate itself." Elira's eyes filled with tears, though they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of triumph, of recognition, of life reclaimed. We changed it," she whispered. "Yes," he said. "The curse was broken the moment you accepted yourself. Your fire is stronger than the shadow, stronger than fear, stronger than rejection. The curse cannot hold you, it can only test you, and you have passed." The chamber dissolved completely, leaving them standing on a high balcony overlooking the valley. The moonlight washed over the world, silver and bright. Below, the packs of the moonbound realm stirred, sensing the shift in power. Even Kale and the Northwatch warriors who had arrived to challenge her claim paused, sensing something ancient and unstoppable. Elira turned to them. For the first time, she did not feel small. She did not feel overlooked. She did not feel rejected. "I am no longer the girl who waited for approval," she said, her voice carrying over the balcony. "I am not the one who bends to the will of others. I am myself, and I will walk forward with the one who sees me as I am, not as they wish me to be." Kale's face paled. He had expected tears, weakness, begging. Instead, he saw strength, authority, and the fire of destiny itself burning in her eyes. Aurelian moved to her side. He did not claim her in words, for the claim had been made the moment she stepped onto the silver river. Instead, he stood as an equal, his presence a shield, a partner, and a reflection of her own power. "The packs will speak," Kale said finally, his voice small. "They will not accept this." Elira shook her head. "They will accept what they must. They cannot stop what has been chosen, and they cannot undo what I have endured. Their words are empty against the truth of my heart." Aurelian nodded. "The past cannot be undone," he said. "But it does not control the future. You control it. Together we do." The valley below shimmered, and the winds carried a strange, soft light that seemed to respond to them. The moonbound realm itself acknowledged their bond, and in that moment, Elira understood the truth. The curse had been a test, not a sentence. The rejection she had suffered, the pain she had carried, had forged her into someone capable of breaking the chains of fate. She looked at Aurelian, and for the first time she smiled freely. Not a timid, hidden smile, but one that reached her eyes and lit her soul. "I never thought I could feel this," she said softly. "I never thought I could be this." "You are fire," Aurelian said. "And fire cannot be controlled. It can only be respected, guided, and shared. You are stronger than anyone expected, even yourself." Elira's chest swelled. She had been rejected, humiliated, and overlooked. She had been left in shadows, forgotten by those who should have cared. But all of that had led her here. The pain had not destroyed her, it had strengthened her. The rejection had not broken her, it had freed her. She looked once more over the valley and the packs gathered below, sensing the power of the Lycan king and his new queen. Even those who had doubted her, even Kale, could see the truth now. The throne of the Lycan king was no longer just his. It was theirs, shared in trust, understanding, and choice. And Alira knew in the deepest part of her soul that she had earned it, not through obedience or beauty, not through the approval of others, but through courage, resilience, and fire. Aurelian's hand tightened around hers. "Are you ready?" he asked. Alira nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice steady and sure. "I am ready to walk forward together." They descended from the balcony, moving through the citadel as the light of the moon followed them. The shadows of fear and doubt had faded, replaced by strength, unity, and the quiet certainty of a bond forged in fire and choice. When they reached the outer gates, the packs of the moonbound realm knelt in acknowledgement. Not all hearts were convinced, but all knew the power that had awakened here. And in the center, Alira stood tall beside the Lycan king, no longer the rejected girl, no longer the overlooked sister, but the queen who had chosen herself and been chosen in return. Kale's gaze met hers one last time. There was no anger, only disbelief and perhaps, for the first time, respect. But it was too late. Alira's path had been forged. The fire inside her had grown too bright to be ignored. The Lycan king turned to her, his golden eyes warm and steady. "The realm changes because of you," he said. "Not because of me, not because of fate, but because of your fire. Together, we are stronger than any curse, stronger than any shadow." Alira smiled, feeling a peace she had never known. "Then let us walk forward," she said. "Together." As the moon bathed them in silver light, the fire within Alira glowed brightly, intertwining with the ancient magic of the Lycan king. The curse that had haunted the realm for centuries had ended, not in death, not in fear, but in courage, choice, and the power of a heart that refused to be broken. The realm watched, the night held its breath, and a new dawn of legend began.